Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. My name is Juan Londoño. Today we're going to discuss the topic of when does equipment actually get in the way, and is that even a thing? So here it is. I want to give you a little clue here. I'm going to claim in this video that it is a thing. That's the first thing, right? So if anybody vehemently disagrees with that, then they'll probably turn the video off at this point, right? But that's the claim. It's going to be that equipment can actually get in the way, all right? That's the first thing. And the second thing is that it depends on the subject we shoot and the genre of photography. Now you're looking at these cameras. Typically, you're just looking at me when I'm filming. I opened it up a little bit so you can see the cameras. These are my three main cameras, right? I collect cameras. I have tons of film cameras and even other digital cameras. But these are my main three cameras. Now, I will tell you a caveat. I don't own a full-frame mirrorless. I've shot the Canon R5 and R6. Love them. I know that Sony has a big line of full-frame digital mirrorless, and so does Nikon, right? So we're going to pretend that this DSLR, it's my Canon 5D Mark III. We're going to pretend, because the size is very similar to a Canon R5 and R6, okay? We're going to pretend this is my Canon R5 or R6. Digital, mirrorless, full frame sensor. So, and I was about to make that cut and replace this DSLR with like an R5, right? I was waiting for the second generation R5 to come out. They rumor it to come out with 60 megapixels, whatever. So I figured, let me wait, right? But it's probably not going to happen now. But I'm going to explain why I have these three systems and how this wasn't always the case, and why this is one of the things that can complicate our life. For those of you that have been shooting for a while, like me, right? This year is 40 years shooting with professional equipment, right? So I was shooting even before that with like little point and shoots and stuff, but 40 years shooting with professional equipment. I shot a Canon F1 for 20 years almost, 19 years, right? And the rest have been 21 years with digital cameras. So what can I say? I started with something like a DSLR, right? And if you look at this, feels good in the hand, right? Excellent grip. The lenses are big, but you know, we'll look at the other camera in a second, right? So, but it's a good size, right? And this was my everything camera, digital DSLR, digital SLR. And now with the full frame mirrorless cameras, right? They track eyes, they track subjects, 20, 30 frames per second. They're animals, right? Total beasts. So if I wanted a general purpose camera to continue along these lines, right? That I can shoot a wedding with, that I can shoot animals with, that I can do portraits, art photography, close-ups, right? I'm going to argue that this is probably your best deal. Now, some people might say, Juan, that's bull, you know, you can do a large format, right? Because then the megapixels are better and bigger. You can even argue crop sensors the way, right? Companies are coming out with crop sensor cameras that do almost the same thing as this, right? And these are becoming so ridiculously good that even the crop cameras that aren't quite this good are still phenomenal, right? So I could understand if you said, Juan, I don't need a full frame mirrorless camera. I could do a crop like a Fuji X-T5 or something like that, right? Nikon has crop sensor, Sony has crop sensor, everybody has crop sensor. This is a Canon crop sensor, right? And I'll talk about that in a second. So that was my origins of photography, right? One camera that would do it all. But I started doing other things, right? When I went to walk the streets of big cities, I didn't want this. When you point this at somebody, right? And this didn't have a flip out screen, but the new R5 and R6, those do, okay? So you try to be a little more discreet by looking down and flipping the little monitor out. And it's a little better, but this is intimidating. And people will confront you on a street. And they'll come over and say, did you just take a picture of me? I want that picture removed, right? Some people are not having happy days, right? And some people just want their privacy preserved, right? Taken care of, whatever, right? So respected. So this starts to get in the way, right? At this distance, it probably doesn't look like a huge camera, but let me show you something. Look at this, right? When you look at these two cameras, there's an obvious difference. And if I take this little viewfinder out, right? I'm old-fashioned that way. I like to look through these. You can remove this, right? Very easy. Gone, right? So look at this camera. It's the size of the lens, okay? So, and the weight is not even, I mean, we can't even compare here, right? So if I want to walk the streets of New York, Chicago, anywhere, this is the kind of little camera that I want to take with me. Something like this, right? Equivalent of a little pancake lens. Now this is a removable little pancake lens, but there are cameras that have fixed little pancake lenses, and you just have to decide what's for you. My point here is not to get into the different formats of shooting. We're going to do a video on that because there are people that don't really know why you would buy one or the other. There are people with a lot of money that want a camera and think because they have a lot of money they need to get one of these. And this will actually get in the way. This is what we're talking about here. Cameras that will get in your way, equipment that will get in your way, equipment that will get in your way, right? For me, all of this started to get in my way because I would go to take pictures in the mountain like, well, I want the large format for the landscapes because I want to be able to enlarge them if I need to sell them on my website. But then I'm going to walk to town and I don't really need this. I'm going to take this little guy, and this comes with a set of lenses, and this comes with a set of lenses, and I'm going to have to do all that. So this is where we are, right? Equipment can get in your way, right? If we don't plan carefully. So was I better off when I had one camera? Well, for a while that was. But until I started wanting to walk streets, and this started to just be too heavy. No comment. Okay, so it's a parrot, by the way, African gray parrot. So I started walking the streets. I get onto the streets sometimes of New Jersey, New York at 6 in the morning before sunrise. I do some city Skypes, you know, and then I start walking the streets, and I can walk till 7, 8, 9 p.m. This is a lot of gear to carry all day long. And by the way, you typically don't have one lens. You typically have 2 or 3 lenses, okay? You can keep a pancake lens for your general stuff, but then sometimes you're going to have to get closer, sometimes you need to get wider. You typically need, you know, I mean, it's a mindset, right? There are Leica cameras with fixed lens. Like I said, there's the Fuji X100V, X100VI now that has a fixed lens, and people can get out there and they can shoot all day with them. But these people will find a limitation, like, oh, I can't get the entire building. Oh, I can't get close to that person, that homeless person. I don't want to get in their face, right? Or that person eating, I don't want to get in their face. Interesting shot, but I can't do it. That's why you carry the extra lenses. When you have a camera this big, it starts to get complicated walking around all day, and then your tripod needs to be heavy duty. So for street photography, I started carrying this, right? And check this out. This is a 50 millimeter. It's a manual lens. Look at the size of this, right? It's a little bigger than what's on there now, right? But look, this is a 50 millimeter 1.2. This is a 35 millimeter 1.4, by the way, right? Look at the size. This lens on that camera acts as an 85 millimeter, right? Now, and it's all freaking glass. Now, what can I do with this? I can do amazing bokeh or bokeh, whatever, right? I can do some portraits, 85 millimeter, right? Equivalent. Beautiful, beautiful. You know how much this costs? $125 because it's a manual focus. And if I'm doing portraits, I don't mind manual focus, right? If I'm walking the city and I decide to get a little closer to stuff, or I decide to do a couple of portraits of people that allow me to, this is what I take out, and the pictures are dreamlike. $125, right? $1,800. Okay? You see the difference, right? I'm shooting, this is a $100 lens, 17 millimeter 1.4. Yes, it's manual focus, but it's got an aperture ring. It's got an aperture ring. Can you hear that? Right, the aperture's right on the lens. So is this one. The aperture's right on the lens. Right? I love that, right? Because I put my camera, I set it up so that I can control everything very quickly. I'm on the streets, but the aperture is easy for me to change. This is the equivalent of a 24 millimeter, right? I have a 1.4 in my hand. Look at this, $100. And by the way, the images of these things, I don't have them because they're crap. I have them because they're amazing. This is a Canon lens, right? These are not Canon lenses. These are TTArtisan. TTArtisan, right? This is a Canon lens. This is a 55 to 200. That's the equivalent of like 88 to 320, right? This is a $400 lens. Look at the size of this lens compared to this. This is a prime. This is a zoom. 88 to 320. This is a 35 millimeter 1.4. If you walk in the streets of New York or any city and you have, this is a 22 millimeter f2, right? Pancake. It's the equivalent of a 35 millimeter. So this is what you have on your camera all day long. You need a zoom. This fits in one of my cargo pants pockets, right? And then I have like a little kit zoom, like an equivalent 24 to 70. And then I put that on if I need something wider, right? And that's it. This is what I carry in my hand. And I got these two lenses, one in each cargo pocket. This doesn't weigh squat. It's metal. It's beautiful. The feel is good. The lens quality, the picture quality out of this lens is amazing. 32 megapixels on a crop sensor. I can't say anything else, right? So this is why my mind started to say, well, you know, this is going to be good for when I go to the park and I want to shoot a model and some fashion. I want to do some portraits for people. This will be my R5, my R6, my Sony, my Nikon, full frame, right? That's what's going to take care of these pictures. But if I want to walk city streets, if I want to go to dangerous parts where I don't want to draw too much attention, right? Other countries, this is going to be the camera I want to use, right? A couple of little lenses, little tripod. I wish I had bought my tripod, very small tripod, because like I said, look at this, right? So now you know, right? So then why did I get this? Because I started to do art photography for my website. Nudes, flowers, landscapes that were going to get blown up really wide. This is 100 megapixels. This is a large format. This is not full frame. This is large. Now look at the size of the cameras. They're basically identical, right? They're basically identical. This has a cage on it too. So that's the miracle of Fuji. They took a large frame format like the Hasselblads and the Phase 1s, and they turned it into something that looks like a DSLR or you know, basically, right? So amazing technology. And I bought this because I was going to need high resolution, especially if I take an exotic trip to like Namibia or something like that, right? In South Africa. So this is the camera that I ended up buying for that. Now I have 3 cameras. What am I going to do? Am I going to take this to Namibia and then this for the streets of, you know, of the little towns? Or am I going to... It starts getting complicated. So I've reached a point in my life where I'm starting to think, maybe not 1 camera, but 2 would be nice. So now that we talked about cameras, and this was a digression, by the way, because there's going to be a full video on differences, weights, and why you would do certain things. But I'm glad we talked a little bit about it now, because there are people that have curiosities that will be watching this video. So I mentioned that there are different types of subjects and genres, right? So what are they? What would cause people to have different systems? And then they start getting complicated, right? Well, the first one, my first category is paid photography. And I wrote a couple of things here. Events, portraits, sports, fashion, children. That just covers some of the stuff, right? So if you are getting paid for your photography, excuse me, I've heard some professional photographers, both people that I know that are making their living from this, right, from photography, and people that I follow on YouTube say the same thing. They say, you know what? I can't think of any other camera I would go into a paid shoot, like a wedding, for example. I can't think of any other camera that I go in with than a full frame Canon, right, for digital, because it's a mirrorless, it's fast, super fast, sharp focus, focus is quick, everything is quick about the camera, everything's amazing, right? I can't think of anything else. Reliability is great. So what they also say, if you listen to them carefully, is these are basically heartless, soulless cameras. They have no soul. It's a huge piece of plastic. That's what it is, right? With metal on the inside, exotic metals, good lenses, good technology, breathtaking technology. On the outside, it looks like every other camera in the world. So they're not inspired. And they say when they go out with their families, when they go out for fun shoots, when they're walking parks or gardens, this is not what they want to take. This is the first camera they leave home because it does absolutely nothing for them. This does nothing for me as well. I still get amazing pictures from this DSLR, and if I had an R5 or an R6, I can guarantee I would take amazing airplane shots and animal shots. But if I'm going to walk the streets with my friend or with my brothers or whatever, and I'm going to take pictures, this is going to be the first camera I leave home. But, got my little book here. But if I can't miss a shot, if I can't miss focus, if I need few buttons, I don't want all these buttons like some of these other cameras and the Fujis, which are known for their tactile and buttons everywhere. Every button is programmable, right? So this is going to be it. They're expensive, right? But they're the latest technology. This is the reference that all other cameras go by, right? The full frame, mirrorless digital bodies. This is the reference that all other cameras go by. So as I said, Fuji performed a miracle when they did a large format this size, right? Phase 1 is a $50,000 camera. This is a $6,000 camera. Even Hasselblad has $20,000, $30,000 cameras. Fuji broke the mold, right? And a lot of their customers have just moved over because when they use the system, they're like, I can't justify a $12,000 lens. I can't justify a $15,000 lens. Now, let me tell you something. This is a prime. Look how big this is. This is a prime. It's a 110 millimeter f2. It's a $3,000 lens, right? Because it has to resolve 100 megapixels. And actually, it doesn't have to resolve 100 megapixels. It has to resolve about 150 because Fuji's growing. This is 100, the next comes 120, the next comes 140, and the next comes 160. So they have to be around for 15 years or so. So these lenses are breathtaking lenses, right? Do you need a camera like this? That's going to depend on all of us. We get to decide that, right? Nobody can decide that for us. But my point here is that there are different cameras for different purposes. Here's a random question, by the way, and it's kind of a digression, but for all my friends out there, what's your spare camera? I know people that are out there shooting weddings, they don't have a spare camera. Cameras do fail. Flashes fail. You should at least have a couple of flashes extra. One failed for me in a wedding, and luckily I had a manual flash from like the 80s and I made it work with this DSLR camera, this one that I have here in my hand. But if I'm in a wedding shooting, for example, with a mirrorless full frame, and it fails, I want to at least have a street photography camera in my bag that I can pop some lenses and at least complete the wedding. They're going to come out great, right? Nobody's running a marathon that I have to track. They're not flying. The couple's not taking off like an airplane. So for most of the stuff, this camera's going to be fine, right? But you don't walk into a wedding this way because they're going to go, oh my God, what did I pay you for? This is like, my brother has a better camera than you. So that's why you walk in with stuff like this. But if one of these fails, just think about that, folks. We're going to do another video on backup cameras, but if you're doing paid work, keep a backup camera. So I think we get it, right? Paid photography, you can argue any of these for paid photography. This will do it too, right? And this will do it too. But full frame mirrorless is the standard for paid photography. The velocity, the everything of this, the technology of these things are amazing, okay? So here we are. What is the next category? The next category is hobby, pleasure, fun, right? So what's included in that? Oh, family, street photography, walking the gardens, things that you do for yourself, right? Are you going to carry a full frame mirrorless SLR? It's up to you, of course. You can, right? You can carry anything you want. Does it make sense? Personally, I don't think so. That's when you take a crop sensor camera and you say, I want to chase my kids around the house. Take pictures of my pets. I'm going to go out to a picnic with them. We're going to go to the beach. This is what you pocket, right? And if you want to put the little kit lens, which is a 15 to 45, which is an equivalent of a 24 to 70, then you pop that on there and you have a camera for the entire day. You want to keep a little zoom in your back pocket for just in case? That's fine, right? You want to throw in, old-fashioned like me, you want to throw in a viewfinder because you're like, okay, so you put a little extra thing on there. Right now it doesn't fit in the pocket maybe, but it fits in a little bag, right? I've carried this on a little fanny pack, right? Just a little bigger, but fantastic camera, right? So we get into that category. Why? Because they're smaller, they're lighter, and they're cheaper, right? This is a $3,200 camera. Now the new R6 is $2,500, right? So $2,500 and an $1,800 lens. This is over $4,000 for a kit like this with an R6. The R5 starts at $4,000 and then an $1,800 lens. Now we're approaching $6,000, right? Big, heavy, right? Expensive. Small, light, inexpensive. This is a $1,000 camera. This is a $250 lens. This is a $400 lens. And then some of the kit lenses are about $300, $250, much, 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 much cheaper, right? Not as intimidating, doesn't draw attention, right? So, and it doesn't have to be this one. I'm just giving you an example. It could be a Leica, it could be whatever you want, right? But a smaller, and Leicas are full frame, right? But just a smaller camera, something that fits in a pocket, right? It could be a Ricoh, it could be whatever you like. Some of the old Sonys too. Right? So if you're doing that type of photography, now you're looking at that type of camera, this type of setup, right? Little lenses. These lenses that I bought for $100, these are all metal. I mean, you have to feel this. This is phenomenal. And you got to see the pictures that come out of this, right? I'm going to include some pictures at the end of this video with this camera, and if I can find them, and these lenses, just so you can see what they do, okay? So let me just add here that I'm not a fanboy. I used to be a Canon fanboy. And not only was I a camera fanboy for Canon, I was a lens fanboy for Canon. So my Canon cameras could only have Canon lenses and L series lenses until I tried the lens that's filming this video. And that's a Canon camera, video camera. It's a Sigma 24mm 1.4, and it's their art lens, which is equivalent to Canon's L series, right? Half the price. I saw a video, I saw a bunch of videos, probably 10 videos, but one of the videos really impacted me. The guy said, I'm going to tell you which lens to buy. Definitive review, right? He went out, took a bunch of pictures, and then did the whole, pixel peeping thing. And at the end, he said, I own the Canon 24mm 1.4 L series, and it's a $1,600 lens. I don't have the heart to tell you to go buy that lens, because the review basically showed, after his 15-minute review, that in the extreme corners, the 24mm Sigma was slightly, not even a lot, slightly softer at like 1.4. When they stepped up to f8, both lenses, you couldn't tell the difference. Both were dead sharp in the middle. Both were fast focusing. The Sigma did a couple things better than the Canon, but the Canon did more things better. But he said, I can't. It's an $800 lens. I can't tell you to go spend $1,600 when you can spend half for a lens that's just as good. So I realized, I went and bought it. I bought that 24mm f.4 for filming here, right? And I put it on the camera when I go outside and stuff. It's an amazing lens. And for photography, 24mm 1.4. How can you go wrong, right? And it's their art series lenses, which is breathtaking clarity. So sharpness. So I dropped the whole fanboy thing. Plus, there's a spiritual side to this. I'm tired of taking sides and doing that stuff. I'm not going there anymore. So there's always different things for different people. Look, Canon. This is a Canon, right? This is a Fuji, right? It's going to be different depending on what your needs are. Now, why do I say this? Because I'm about to make some recommendations, and I didn't want you to think, oh, he's a fanboy, right? I wrote them down here. So what are they? So basically, if you're in the full frame world, it's going to be Canon or Sony, right? Yes, of course, you can own a Nikon, you can own a Fuji, whatever, right? Well, actually, Fuji doesn't make full frame. So you can own whatever you want. But let's talk about the numbers. Canon sells 21% more cameras than Sony. And Sony is at the top of their game right now. And then Sony sells like a whole bunch more than the next company down, like a way more. So you can see where Canon is and where Sony is. They're running the industry right now, right? It doesn't mean that the other cameras are bad. I'm not saying that. The other cameras are phenomenal, right? You know how much I like Fuji. I have this invested and I'm thinking about another camera. Right? And Nikon's making amazing cameras. I just don't have the infrastructure for it. I don't have old lenses to support the camera, so I don't bother. But I have friends that shoot Nikons, the new Nikon digitals, phenomenal cameras, right? They're catching up, but they're trying their best. But my point is, if you're shooting full frame digital, it's probably going to be Sony or Canon. If you're shooting medium or large format, it's going to be Hasselblad or Fuji, right? And this is, it's up to you which one you end up getting. This just makes more sense to me. And if you're shooting crop sensor, I'm just going to say Fuji. Yes, everybody makes them. Canon makes them. Nikon makes them. Sony makes them. The Fuji X100VI, not the X100V, which is 5, the X100VI, which is V1, just went out in the market. Well, when it went out in the market for sale, it was selling, what was it? 35 times more than the Nikon crop sensor camera. And it was selling 50 times more than the Sony, and 2 Sony crop sensor cameras that are used for the same reasons, right? So Fuji is cleaning house when it comes to crop sensor cameras so much that we're going to go into something a little later. But of course, you know, their large format is killing Hasselblad and killed basically phase one. So those are just recommendations. Do whatever you want with them. You don't have to, of course, follow them. But just if you're learning about cameras and you're interested in looking things up, check along those lines right now. If you see this 5 years later, those names might change. So my last category, the third category, is pleasure for money. Not just pleasure, but pleasure for money. What does that mean? It means I go out to shoot pictures in a big city and I come back and I find 3 or 4 that I can enlarge for sale on my website. So I clean them up, I make them look pretty, and I put them on my website. So pleasure for sale, right? Sounds like I'm prostituting myself. Pleasure for sale. No, we're not talking about that here. That's another video. So pleasure for sale. So what else? I go to shoot flowers and one of them is like breathtakingly beautiful. I shoot it with this camera, 100 megapixels. I did it for pleasure, but it turns out I can sell this on my website, right? If you're doing that, then what categories? I wrote a couple down, right? So we're talking about like landscapes, nature, street photography, animals, abstracts, you know, patterns, colors, right? Fantastic for this topic, right? This subject. Now, which camera do you use? That's going to depend on you again. I will say, now that I've gone through these phases of my life, where I started with one camera, where I grew to 3 different systems for different things, art, general purpose, and street, right? And just light, if I want to go to a beach or something, this is going to be my answer. I'm probably never going to go to one again, because it's going to be this one, because this is the camera that takes my heart, really. And it doesn't do everything, right? In the street, this is just too, you should weigh this thing. This is all metal, by the way, right? It's a beast. So I don't want to carry this on the streets. It's also dangerous. If somebody sees this and they know cameras, I'm holding $9 grand in my hand here, right? Now, I'm not bragging. Please don't take it that way. This took years to accumulate. I didn't just go to the store yesterday and drop down a bunch of thousands of dollars. No. This took years and years to buy, right? This is over 10 years old. So just keep that in mind. But my point is, I would love to combine my general purpose with my street photography, maybe combine these 2 systems into one. And for me, it would probably be a Fuji X-T5. Let me tell you why. I already have a Fuji large frame. I can't use the lenses, right? Full frame, large frame. This is a Fuji large frame. The sensor is huge on this thing, 100 megapixels. If I want to use the lenses on the other camera, I can't. But the menus are the same. Right now, I'm dealing with Fuji menus, Canon menus, right? And these 2 Canon menus are totally different, because this is a DSLR. But they're going to be similar on, on mirrorless cameras. So this is going to be Fuji. If I can replace all of this with like a Fuji X-T5, or if I do it next year, it'll be the X-T6 probably. Those cameras are 40 megapixel crop sensors. The Fuji glass, you know that Fuji glass is good. It resolves 120, 130, 150 megapixels. When they put it on those small cameras, it's a little simpler, but phenomenal glass. What's good about this camera? Film simulations. 20 film simulations, which means your JPEGs are drop dead gorgeous right out of the camera, and they follow different Fuji films. So depending on what you like, nostalgic, negative, whatever you like, right? Black and white, acros, you set it, you can still get your raw files, right? But then you set the JPEGs to come out with one of your film simulations. You can share them with family, no editing needed, beautiful pictures, right? So if I can combine these 2 systems for one general purpose camera, the Fuji X-T5 or X-T6 next year, whatever, that would be great. It's going to be a little bigger than this, much smaller than this, and so it's going to be in the middle. I can take it for my street photography, and it's almost up to the R5, R6 when it comes to tracking animals, eyes, subjects, trains, cars, motorcycles, 20 frames per second, 30 frames per second in certain modes. If you 180th of a second shutter speed, if you put it in digital, phenomenal camera, right? And for me, it means more that I'm going to have one ecosystem, one set of menus that I don't have to think them. I take this camera with me. I love this camera, and I have to think, right? Because I was shooting Fuji the day before, and then I'll shoot this in New York for 3 or 4 days, and then I come back and I'm like, what do I do with this thing, right? What do I do with this? I love this flip screen, by the way. Check this out. You got Fuji, right? You shoot this way if you're shooting portraits, and it also comes down this way. If you're shooting something like a wedding, you're shooting high, right? You need to look low. And of course, if I manage to do this, it comes out this way. So it pivots in all these different, you know, the engineering that this company does is just phenomenal. This is all metal. I mean, so am I a fanboy? No, I'm not a fanboy. When this changes, when this technology changes years down the line, I may end up getting rid of the X-T5 or X-T6 and getting another, right? Maybe Nikon's going to come up with this innovative technology and something that I really want to hold and play with. I'll get rid of that and get that, right? We're photographers. These are toys for us. And by the way, keep that in mind. That's what these are. These are tools. So, you know, we're all crazy, and maybe one day keeping this as a large frame and then replacing this stuff for the Fuji like X-T5 or X-T6 in the future, I may end up getting a Leica anyway, because I've just always wanted one. So in the future, that might be my street photography camera. And then the X-T5 or the X-T6, that'll be my general purpose. I don't know where I'm headed, but I just wanted to share this with you. It's kind of like a rambling video, but it kind of gives you the idea that there are different types of cameras for different things. And that's why I wanted to point, is there a point where equipment gets in the way? Yes. When you grow a system, by the way, this camera has one lens, 2, 3, 4. There's a 5th, 6th, and 7th lens upstairs. So I already have 7 lenses because they're cheap, right? For this, some manual focus, some autofocus, some Canon, some Sigma, whatever. I've made my life a little complicated. If I take this and I take 7 lenses, I defeated the purpose of having a small light camera because now I have a bunch of gear, right? So I just complicated my life. If I'm going to buy a street photography camera, 2 or 3 lenses tops, keep it simple, right? I grew it way too big. This I have like 5 lenses for, right? And this I have 3 lenses for. So complicated. I've complicated my life, right? If you're at the point where you're happy with one camera does what you need, stick with one camera. No need for anything else. And stick to as fewer lenses as you need, right? That Fuji, by the way, X-T5 has a lens that's the equivalent full frame of a 24 to 120 f4. And if I get that for street photography, that'll never leave that camera. That lens is going to be on that camera the entire day, I can guarantee you. And that means a lot to me, right? So these huge cameras can stay. These little cameras, I bought 2 of these, one for photography and one for videos, because I didn't have that camera, the C100, the Canon, so I was shooting my videos on this because it follows my face, and I lean forward, it would keep me focused. I would lean back, it would keep me focused. My DSLR that I started with wasn't doing that. I would move forward and then I was out of focus. I had to stay still the whole time, right? So I don't know what I'm going to do with these. I love these cameras. Love the M6 Mark II. This is a beautiful camera, right? So I don't know why Canon discontinued this, because they didn't want to maintain more lenses and stuff. But you know, I'm not ready to get rid of it just yet. So this X-T5, that's why I said it might be an X-T6 next year sometime, at the end of next year. I'm not done shooting this camera. 32 megapixels, beautiful images. All my street photography, if you go on my website, you're going to see all my street photography. 90% of that is shot with this camera. And most of my flowers are shot with this DSLR. This has been mostly for art photography and very special portraits that are not on my website. So there's not even a whole bunch you can see on my website for this, but that's going to change this year. So where are we? We're at the end of the video. I hope you realize that we can complicate ourselves, not just by buying one camera, because if you buy 20 lenses for it, now you're sitting there going, oh, I'm going to the mountains. Which 8 lenses am I going to take? Defeats the purpose. I'm going to the city. I don't know what to do. And then you spend your time switching lenses. Oh, no, the bus. I can't fit it with this lens. Let me get a wider. And then the bus goes by with the graffiti, and you're like, maybe I can wait around for another bus. And the next 8 buses, none of them have graffiti, because that's how life works, right? So you should have had just an all-purpose lens, right? That maybe isn't the widest, aperture, like 1.4, maybe it's a 2.8 or 4.0, but at least you got the shot. So those are all the things we have to balance as photographers. And then, of course, all these multiple cameras, and, we just make our life complicated sometimes. Let me know in the comments, what are you shooting? What are you thinking of buying? Were you already thinking of complicating your life a little? Or maybe it's already complicated. Let me know what you think, right? And what's going on in your life with photography. Also, if this applies to another branch of life, like you're a dentist and you're buying way more, or you're a mechanic and you're buying way more tools than you actually need, put it in there, because I love to hear that other disciplines are doing the same thing, complicating their life with tools and gear, right? The other thing is, I am giving out one photograph signed 8x10 and matted every month. So you have to go to the website, and the link is down in the description of the video, and supply when the little window pops up for your email, just supply your email address. It'll get you a newsletter, right, every month. It'll get you some tips now and then, and it'll get you into the contest for a free signed 8x10. And there's no shipping, there's no nothing. I'll get it out to you, I'll contact you. I'll also post the winners every month, and that's gonna start at the end of this month, March, okay? March 2024. I don't know when you're watching this, you may be watching this 10 years later. So, and I don't know if I'm gonna be doing it 10 years later, but for now, at least 2024, 2025, it's gonna be one picture signed, going out every month, okay? So what else can I say? Please like the video, subscribe. It means a lot for the channel. I don't make any money off this channel, and the companies aren't paying me. I am the promoter, I am the director, I'm the writer, I'm everything, I'm the actor. So I manage my own company here. I hope you're liking the videos. I love you guys. Please take care of yourselves. Just because I didn't drink water on the video doesn't mean I don't have it. I do it on the breaks that you don't see. I hope you're keeping yourself hydrated and healthy. Take your vitamins, eat well, sleep well, and I'll talk to you guys in the next video. I love you guys. Keep in touch, and until the next one, ciao for now. That's it. I think I babbled enough for that one. That's what happens when you don't have a script.